Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, hang on. I'll turn the microphone on, it'll work a lot better. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Carl Liebold from the Voice of Freedom. Thank you for coming today to what is an historic day. We are in the old Parliament House of Australia. We are in the Senate courtyard. It is great to see so many of you who've come along this morning to share in the information that you're going to learn and potentially participate in a little later on. I'd like to thank everybody who's travelled. There have been a lot of people who have travelled. There are two blokes standing up the back here in blue T-shirts that drove from Bundaberg over, well, a night and a day to get here. I think there's somebody from Cairns who came down. We have people from South Australia, Victoria, New South Wales. This is an Australia-wide movement. So thank you for those of you who have taken the time and the expense to bring yourself here and be part of what will be a very historic day. It is also a global event. We are live streaming through all the VOF channels and we are live streaming on ibroadcast.au to an international audience, and I can tell you there are some very interested viewers internationally on what's happening today. So why are we here? Well, the corruption whistleblower, as you are mostly aware, and if you haven't already done so, there are copies of the latest edition of the corruption whistleblower up near the front door. They're $5. Please grab one of those. The corruption whistleblower essentially is providing 4 briefs of supplementary evidence to what you will hear today. The first 3 editions of that are already out and available. The 4th will be coming in the not too distant future. Now, one of the driving forces behind the corruption whistleblower newspaper and the online presence is a woman who is just a powerhouse in this movement. She's a 30-year veteran nurse. She's worked in general nursing and mental health, and what she doesn't know about the system isn't worth knowing. I would like you to put your hands together and make very welcome from the corruption whistleblower, Donna.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And yes, thank you very much for coming, beautiful fellow Aussies who are here in the old Parliament House. Truth seekers and freedom fighters. We are the true defenders of the faith. And we gather here today at the Commonwealth Parliament House, our Parliament House, the Land and Soil Jurisdiction Parliament House. And we are here to make history today, and we are in the process of making history for this grand jury indictment process that you will be walked through today. So that very much the Australian government and officialdom, they stand accused of treason, major fraud, insurrection, child abduction and child trafficking, genocide and democide, perverting the course of justice, gaining financial advantage by deception, referendum fraud, taking false oaths, crimes against humanity, and malfeasance of office. The evidence has been compiled and it's clear, but the decision is up to you, the people, to make the decision. So we are sending a message to the dictators calling themselves the Australian government, that we do not consent to a concealed dictatorship, to this unlawful rule of tyranny. The People's Grand Jury Indictment is a powerful, lawful response, and today we take a stand. So please relax and grasp what we are talking about. We have given you the participation forms and they are available online. Welcome everyone online. We thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us all over Australia. And I hear from Texas and Virginia, welcome to our American guests online. We welcome you. And we thank you and we acknowledge that the USA is going ahead with great strides. Yes, we are very grateful for that. Now, some may ask, what is a grand jury? By definition, a grand jury is a body of men and women, typically just 23, brought together to examine the validity of the accusation before a trial. Outstandingly today, this grand jury involved hundreds of you, thousands of you, online and everything. So you're all involved. So how many times we get a group of 23 will be how many grand jury indictments we will be able to create today. and therefore then send off to the International Criminal Court and other international jurisdictions. So all of you, you are the warriors. You are the warriors of this nation. You have come to take part in this, and the warriors online, we welcome you. So your distance might have been a little bit too far to come, but we see you, we hear you, and we thank you. And please download the forms online and fill them out. So we are here for this historic grand jury indictment event, and we are all here to participate, to fight for truth and justice for our nation. So the idea is, imagine 23,000 grand jurors equals 100 grand juries. So that's 100 official indictments on the Australian government and their officialdom. So we want to stop the belligerent occupation. We stand united today against the unlawful occupation of our public institutions as well. And we say again, no consent and no contract. The Australian government is not the people's government. The Commonwealth of Australia and the Australian government, the Australian government is a foreign government of political subdivision, meaning it's a private business, and that's going to get unpacked today. It's a foreign-controlled entity that is parasitically running our nation. They have seized control over our land, our people, and our resources. And this institution, without all these different institutions they've got control over, without our consent, and a lot of the times without our knowledge. So we do demand full accountability and full disclosure, and the return of lawful governance according to our constitution, common law, and the will of the people. So help us, God. So today you are taking part in Australian history. You are the history makers. And we cannot allow and continue to allow the deception and the crimes against humanity that are going on. Look at the democide that has just happened from the injection, the excess deaths. We'll be covering all that today. And it's also covered in the corruption whistleblower number 2. So this is not just a speech or a gathering or a get-together or even a protest. This is the next level up. This is the lawful restoration of justice for the people, a lawful rebellion for the people and from the people. So the people's prosecution is now, we will be presenting evidence. But firstly, I would like to declare the People's Court now in session and open. So welcome everyone. Thank you. Yes. I will now read the administration of oath. So we are on now to the participation form. We'll start on the participation form, the grand jury indictment, file number GJI. And that's just the date after it, 08/02/2025. For who? For the Australian Government, Parliament, Judiciary and public officials for treason, fraud, democide and other crimes against humanity. So this is the lawful swearing in of you, the grand jurors. I will read through it. Administration of oaths. Members of the grand jury, you have volunteered to be grand jurors in accordance with the Commonwealth of Australia Constitution Act, common law and from the land and soil jurisdiction. These responsibilities placed upon you are solemn and significant. You are entrusted with the duty to fairly and impartially review evidence and determine whether probable cause exists to issue a formal indictment to the alleged defendants named in this form. There's 266 of them, and that's just for starters. And safeguard the principles of justice in this nation through the free and good faith participation with the grand jury indictment for the restoration of justice in a peaceful and safe manner. So this is your oath. This is the grand jury oath that you will be signing under. I do solemnly affirm that I will diligently and impartially inquire into all matters that come before this grand jury according to the best of my knowledge and ability. I will uphold the principles of justice as all are equal before the law, ensuring that no individual is wrongly accused and that all evidence is fairly considered. I am of sound mind and reason and participate from free will in good faith to render my decisions based upon lawful due process regarding the evidence presented and with my best judgment, free from bias, free from bias, fear or favour. I will neither indict any person through malice nor fail to indict through undue influence or fear. I will faithfully discharge my duties as a grand juror and to the best of my ability, so help me God, and under the penalty of perjury. So this is your oath. This is what we're here today, to resurrect that beautiful word, justice, and we shall be doing that. So at the moment, please keep your forms handy, download them online. This is, like Carl said, an interstate event. And so I will now be introducing Peter Horton. He is the People's Prosecutor, and Peter Horton will be delivering the evidence today in full. And you can get a copy of the evidence if you haven't at the front, or download the evidence online. And also, like we've said, there's a brief of evidence in the first, second and third edition of the paper, and a lot more than just what we'll be presenting today. The evidence will take half an hour to 40 minutes to present, and then you can, if you feel that there is a need to indict the Australian government, then we shall press forward and run a vote and see what you all think, because it's back to the power of the people. So thank you very much, and I welcome now Peter Horton to present the evidence. Thank you.
Thank you everybody for coming. Just before we start, can I just double check that everybody's got a copy of this Annex JA that they can see with their partner next to them? We didn't have enough to print for everybody, but as long as you can run through the form and see the evidence, that's a must. Everybody's got to be a witness to it. Is there anybody here that hasn't got access to it? Can we get him a copy?
Yep, get you some.
Yeah, that'll be right.
You're right.
Yep. All right. Okay. Everybody's got viewing or able to view a copy of the Annex JA, the brief of evidence. One down here, please. Another one over there, Donna, please. Okay, we'll start running through the evidence now. So if we go to page 1, that's obviously the front cover that is demonstrating what this brief of evidence is. We'll go to the second page, which is the exhibit page, so you can later refer back to these pages when you're deliberating your decision. And we can go to the third page, which is a summary, which you can all read yourselves. It's an introduction, a basis for jurisdiction, the false oaths and violation of public trust, sedition and treason against the people, democide crimes against humanity, and conclusion and call to action. So if we can proceed now to the fourth page. This page here is just for everybody to look at. It's supplementary evidence. But we'll be running today through the critical evidence, which we only have to prove probable cause to create the indictment. It's not a beyond reasonable doubt trial. So that's for everybody to either get a copy of that paper and look at the evidence in detail, ready for the trial if we all choose to indict today. So we'll travel now to page 5, and this is the primary law of this country, which is section 128 of the Constitution. And you can see where it's ringed in red there, and the words to that say, "This Constitution shall not be altered except in the following manner. The proposed law for the alteration thereof must be passed by an absolute majority of each House of the Parliament, and not less than 2 nor more than 6 months after the passage through both houses. The proposed law shall be submitted in each state to the electors qualified to vote for the election of members of the House of Representatives." That's the key law for the Constitution. We all must vote for the laws. We'll travel now to the page number 6. This was the beginning of the treason that we can, as far back as we can go, where they changed and altered the Great Seal of the Commonwealth of Australia, and all of a sudden, out of the blue, without the electors' consent, created the Great Seal of Australia with the Queen of Australia as far back as 1960. So a Freedom of Information request was sent in 2024 to the Attorney General requesting the instrument that overrides, suspends or terminates the Great Seal of the Commonwealth of Australia and the indissoluble Federal Commonwealth under the Crown of the United Kingdom as qualified in the Constitution was lodged to the Attorney General, Freedom of Information, who responded with They refuse access to pursuant Section 24A of the Freedom of Information Act because they don't have the documents. So how has this country gone to make any enforceable laws or legislations since 1960? How did the Great Seal get removed? That's the big question, because we're going to proceed shortly to the referendum page, and you're going to see that all these acts and bits and pieces that I'm going to present to you, there's no referendum for them. So if we can proceed now to the seal. Underneath that, the kangaroo and emu seal with the Roman reef. That, I believe, was potentially made in somebody's backyard, because it's not the armorial seal of the Commonwealth of Australia, which is not for sealing acts. So if we can proceed to the next page, on page 7, we'll see the Great Seal of Australia. It was sent to the former Governor-General Quinton Bryce and asked if the seal shown above was the seal referred to in the commission given by Queen of Elizabeth II to Mrs. Quinton Bryce, to which the administration assistant from the Government House in Canberra replied that the seal as shown above is the same seal as the one that is on the Governor-General's commission. So further on, that seal was sent to the Garter King of Arms at the College of Arms in London, who was asked if the seal as shown above, which has been described as the Great Seal of Australia, is recognised in British law and can be used by the Queen of the United Kingdom, to which the Garter King of Arms of the College of Arms stated, the device submitted does not incorporate any royal arms. These are the armorial bearings of the Commonwealth of Australia, and Her Majesty is described as Queen of Australia on the seal and not Queen of the United Kingdom. I do not have any relevant record in my office. So there you go. The Great Seal of Australia is not recognised in the United Kingdom or by the electors. So we'll proceed to the next page, page 8, where we have the infamous Royal Styles and Titles Act of 1973. And I point down to where the red box is, and you can see it says, and whereas the Government of Australia considers it desirable to propose to Her Majesty in the form of the Royal Styles and Titles Act to be used in relation to Australia and its territories, but it's not the Government of the Commonwealth of Australia that's requesting that. It's not our government. So the word the Commonwealth's been removed. So if we can go down a little bit further on page, it says, be it therefore enacted by the Queen, the Senate and the House of Representatives of Australia. And once again we have the word the Commonwealth removed. Now, for all of you that may or may not know what the Commonwealth means, but when you look it up, it means public welfare, general good. It's in the words, Commonwealth. So once the Commonwealth words are removed, public welfare, general good is not there anymore for us. Maybe they're in minor forms, but it's not law. So we can travel to the next page, please, on page 9 of the evidence. And strangely enough, at the bottom of that page, you can see where it's in the red box, it says, note, see the important words crossed out. This means the words are not included in the contract and these were deliberately removed. So the words in the name of Her Majesty I assent to this act's been crossed out, and it appears to be crossed out by Paul Haslock. And then further in blue ink, which has been written on the page, it says, I assent this purported law. The word purported means appearing or stated to be true, though not necessarily so. Alleged, the purported marriage was void. So it's a purported law. And once again, when we move on to the referendum page, you'll see that there was no referendum, because we know when we look back at section 118 that all the proposed laws, especially the major ones, need to be put before the electors. So we can move now to page 10. So we've got the Queen of Australia fraud now because it's unelected and it hasn't been put before the electors. And the words, the Commonwealth, have been removed out of all the acts. So I'll just ask the audio guys, are we ready to play the Queen of Australia video? Okay, we can watch that a little after, or sorry, can upload it later. It's not necessarily a critical part of the evidence, but you all need to watch that. Okay, it's ready to go. Okay, so has everybody got the link to watch the document on their phones? Upload that while I'm running through the evidence anyway, and you can watch that in a minute. It's playing out live now. Okay then. Everybody can watch that. Audio of that. Okay, we'll proceed with the rest of the
Mr. Albanese, I invite you to take and subscribe the affirmation of office of Prime Minister of the State.
I, Anthony Norman Albanese, do solemnly and sincerely affirm and declare that I will well and truly serve the Commonwealth of Australia, her land and her people in the office of Prime Minister.
The affirmation of office.
I, Scott John Morrison, do swear that I will well and truly serve the people of Australia in the office of Prime Minister, and I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, Queen of Australia, so help me God.
Mr. Turnbull, I invite you to take the oath of office as Prime Minister.
I, Malcolm Bligh Turnbull, do swear that I will well and truly serve the people of Australia in the office of Prime Minister, and that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, the Queen of Australia, so help me God.
Mr. Turnbull, I invite you to take the oath of office as...
I, Quentin Alice Louise-Bryce, Governor-General of the Commonwealth of Australia, pursuant to Section 64 and 65 of the Constitution, hereby direct and appoint the Honourable Julia Eileen Hillard, MP, a member of the Federal Executive Council, to hold the office of Prime Minister and to administer the Department of the Prime Minister and Cabinet.
I, Kevin Michael Rudd, do swear that I will well and truly serve the Commonwealth of Australia, her land and her people, in the office of Prime Minister, so help me God.
Would you sign the document there?
I, Anthony John Abbott, do swear that I will well and truly serve the people of Australia in the office of Prime Minister, and that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, Queen of Australia, so help me God.
I, Jonathan Howard, do swear that I will well and truly serve the people of Australia in the office of Prime Minister, and that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, so help me God.
Allegiance to Queen of Australia.
That I will well and truly serve the people of Australia in the office of Prime Minister, and that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, so help me God.
But not according to law. So they've perverted all the oaths and changed them all around so that they're not swearing the proper oath as per the Constitution, because they're swearing an oath to the Australian government, which is not our government. Our government is the government of the Commonwealth of Australia. So I'll now proceed to page 11 of the Exhibit A document of brief of evidence. Sure. Yeah. Okay, so if we can go to page 11 of the brief of evidence, please. So this is the final report of the Constitutional Commission of 1988, Volume 2. And we have significant evidence in here. That's the front cover. If we can proceed to the next page, page 12. There's their signatures from the Constitutional Commission saying they're basically giving directions to the government of what they need to do. So we can proceed to page 13. This is the bill number 1. An act to alter the Commonwealth of Australia Constitution Act by omitting obsolete words so as to recognise the Queen of Australia. So this is in 1988. They're making bills for the electors to approve Queen of Australia, which wasn't done, because we're going to show you that in the referendum results further on down the presentation. So we can go down to the second line underlined in red. Be enacted by the Parliament of the Commonwealth of Australia with the approval of the electors as required by the Constitution. But there was no referendum, which we're going to see a little bit later. And if we go down to we can go down to section 2. The Government of Australia, the Commonwealth of Australia Constitution Act is altered by omitting the words, be it therefore enacted by the Queen's Most Excellent Majesty by and with the advice and consent of the Lords Spiritual and Temporal and Commons in this present Parliament, assembled by the authority as the same as follows. So they're just pulling parts out of our oath, or their oath that they're supposed to be saying, but they've made this bill to put forward to the electors, but they don't hold the referendums. And then further down we can see in section 3 and 4 and 5, they're removing other parts of the Constitution, but they're not asking us. So they're basically just doing what they want. So we can move to page 14, please. This is Bill number 2. An act to alter the Constitution so as to require the senators and members of the House of Representatives to take oaths or affirmations of allegiance to the Queen of Australia. Again. But they're doing it, but they haven't got the approval of the electors, which is treason. Be it enacted by the Parliament of the Commonwealth of Australia with the approval of the electors as required by the Constitution as follows. Short title. This Act may be cited by the Constitution or Alteration, Oaths and Affirmations of Allegiance 1988. The Constitution is altered by omitting from the schedule therein the words of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland and submitting of Australia. They need our consent to do these things, but they're doing it anyway, because once again, the government of the Commonwealth of Australia, the People's Government, isn't the Australian government. So if we can proceed now to page 15 of the evidence. We've got a picture of the Australia Act, and if we can go of the front of the Act, and if we can go to page 16, we can see there where the lines point down to section 5, Commonwealth Constitution Act and Statute of Westminster not affected. Well, if it's not affected, then section 128 applies, and there was no referendum for the Australia Act in 1986. And if we can proceed further down to section 13 and 14, amend the Constitution of Queensland and amend the Constitution of Western Australia. But that requires a state referendum, which they did not do. So we had to put the entire Act in there because it's a brief of evidence. So if I can get you now to proceed to page number 24, please. So we've got evidence on this page that the Australia Act is finished and unlawful. Once again, the Australia Act, one presentation of it's got the memorial bearings on it, but the memorial bearings aren't for sealing acts. Now, if we travel down to the bottom of that page, there's a Supreme Court case that was run in South Australia. And if we look at the transcript proceedings, and we can reflect on where the Australia Act has said the alteration of the Constitution of Queensland and Western Australia, but there was no referendum for it. So Justice Livesey in the Supreme Court that was myself on page 9 of the transcript there. If you can go down where it says Mr. Horton, it says, okay, so we can now know that the double entrenched referendums at a minimum of Western Australia and Queensland was omitted. That's because they used to beat me up in the courts down there in South Australia and try and say that South Australia didn't need a referendum because all the states had to approve it. So I found these acts in Western Australia and Queensland that were double entrenchment acts. So they had to do it. It was a statutory requirement. But here we've got him on the transcripts clearly saying that the referendums at a minimum, the double entrenchment referendums at a minimum of Western Australia and Queensland were omitted, and he says yes. So I say to him, so that means the Australia Act's finished, and he replies yes. So that means the Australia Act's finished, no referendum. So we're going to move on to the next page now, page number 25. This page here is their constitution, the Australian government's constitution, but it's not a Constitution Act, it's just a constitution. The tree's got a constitution, we've all got constitutions, but this is not a Constitution Act. But what is it? Encircled in red there, it's under the Australia Act. But the Australia Act's finished, as Justice Livesey had replied to me. And when we move forward, we'll see there's no referendum for these acts, nor Queen of Australia, not the Australia Act, and basically not anything that they're currently doing now. So even if they had a referendum for Australia Act, it wouldn't be valid because there's no Queen of Australia. They're finished from 1960, and 1973, more frauds, more treason, and then the Australia Act, more frauds and more treason. So we can travel now to page 26, please. We've got now the Australian government's registration in Washington, DC, but it's a play on words. It's registered as Commonwealth of Australia, not the government of the Commonwealth. It says Commonwealth of Australia. It could be anybody's Commonwealth. It could be the Freemasons' Commonwealth, and that's mostly likely what it is. So if we can now travel to the critical piece of evidence, which is the referendum's dates and results. So everybody can look at that page and see the dates and the outcomes. That there was no referendum for Queen of Australia or the Royal Styles and Titles Act 1973. There was no referendum for the Australia Acts. And furthermore, there was no referendum held in 1988 when the Constitutional Commission proposed those laws to the government to fix the Constitution up, but they were obviously too scared to have it because too many people would wake up and think, hang on, these laws were supposed to be passed in 1973. How was my trial legitimate? How were the judges sworn in? How were the parliamentary members sworn in? It's one big fraud. So that's for you guys to examine. The page is there as evidence. And before you deliberate, I want you all to look at that. Make sure you know what you're signing when you sign the participation form. So we can now move to the next page, page number 28. These are the extracts from the Crimes Act, 1914 to 1960, because if you remember, we showed that they'd changed the seal from the Great Seal of the Commonwealth of Australia to the Great Seal of Australia in 1960. So the 1914 current Crimes Act with the kangaroo and emu on it has a fraudulent seal on it and has slowly but surely eliminated the penalty for treason. And so you can see down and make your own assumptions what the punishment for that is. But this is part of the evidence for you to deliberate on and make your decision at the end of the presentation of the evidence. So if we can now proceed to the next page, page number 29. Now we're discussing the Criminal Code Act. So we've proven now in this document that that kangaroo and emu on that Criminal Code Act 1995 is a fraud. But what's even worse that's in there, if we look at section 268121 and section 268122, they are an abomination of lawful rights for the people and has been another contributor to the current democide we find ourselves in, i.e. the COVID vax, the Indigenous, and so on. So section 268121 of the Criminal Code Act 1995 stipulates that the proceedings for the offences under Division 26H, which covers crimes against humanity, genocide and war crimes, cannot be commenced without written consent of the Attorney General. So the Attorney General's some kind of dictator. Essentially meaning the Attorney General must give permission before prosecutions can begin for these serious international crimes. All the other countries that are party to the Rome Statute can all file them in there, but for some reason or other in this country we need the permission of somebody's deciding that they're God of this country, and I can assure you they're not. Mark Dreyfus is committing treason. Thank you very much. So section 2, what's even worse, and you can't get much worse than that, is that at section 268122 prevents the questioning, appeal or review of the Attorney General's decision. The Criminal Code Amendment Genocide Crimes Act, Crimes Against Humanity and War Crimes Bill 2024 proposes to repeal section 268122. So what we're going to do today, or what we're proposing today, is once we get this indictment underway and we have enough participants, we'll be filing this into the International Criminal Court to say that Mark Dreyfus, the Attorney General, has no standing because he's actually charged the seal's fraudulent, and Section 268, 121 and 122 is an abhorrent law. How does he get to veto and block what we are saying are crimes against humanity in this country? And there has been many of them. So I now start to wind up the evidence, and we invite you all to watch the video Australian Witness Statements, a full documentary about the COVID. Some of you have probably already seen it. But that video on its own, if you're not happy or it's not your will after I've just presented these facts to you, the referendum frauds, the Queen of Australia fraud, the Queen of Australia false oaths by the Prime Ministers, the Fraud in Australia Act, then you can watch this witness statement, which is enough to send them to the International Criminal Court for crimes against humanity, treason, dishonestly dealing in documents, and the list goes on. So just before I finish up on the evidence, I'd like to actually draw you back to back to the Australia Act on page 16. So, sorry, on page 17. If you look up the top of this act, and I wanted to point this out to all the people who have been beaten up by the police for saying they're sovereign citizens, because this act, even though it has no constitutional conformity and it has no elector consent, what it does actually say up the top here, and this is how foolish the police are, and you've got to wonder, like, where are they getting their training from? But in the Australia Act, which has no referendum for it, it says on page 17, an act to bring into constitutional arrangements affecting the Commonwealth and the states into conformity with the status of the Commonwealth of Australia as a sovereign, independent and federal nation. So what they're basically saying in this act is we're all sovereign citizens, but yet the police beat us up for saying it, and have named people calling themselves sovereign citizens terrorists. So the whole thing's a mess, and it's up to you people today to decide whether you think that in this brief of evidence there's enough presented to create probable cause to create an indictment. Now, what the process is after we create the indictment and we collect up all these forms, and we're going to have a vote in a minute, a show of hands, but you will still need to sign all the forms and leave them in the collection with the collection people up the front there. The process is we'll be collecting all these together, writing them all their indictments, serving every single one of them personally, and then once that's done, we will announce a date for a public trial under the People's Court seal. Because the reason that seal was created, because it's the people's seal, because their seals are all fraudulent. They're corporations in our courts. There's no justice period in these courts, as we all know. And as I think most Australians know, the only ones that don't know it are the ones that haven't been in the court system. There's
at the moment, they're not letting any of our people in the building. They've stopped them all.
Okay, fair enough.
It's a democratic country, right? I have a right to get in here, mate.
All right, no worries. I'll talk to you afterwards about that, but thank you very much for letting us know. So today it's up to you to decide whether to indict or not indict by signing the forms. So once they've all been served, we'll call a date and we'll notify them that they have to turn up. And we'd really like to see a mass gathering down here, really big. We want everybody to be electors down here so that we know we can't vote for the Australian government, because when we do, we're committing treason.
Yeah, over to this one.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes, thank you. So stay here with me. Thank you, Peter. Amazing evidence. Yeah, thank you very much. So we do the Corruption Whistleblower newspaper, and we have put a lot of effort and brief of evidence in there. But right now we're going to actually run a vote. We're going to run the grand jury indictment vote. So what I would like to call your attention, your remembrance to the evidence, and I'd like you to raise your hand if you agree that the Australian government and the officialdom need to be indicted for the crimes that are outlined on the participation form. A 75% raise of hands will have a pass, and can we get some footage of that? Yeah, beautiful, we got footage of that. I would say it would be unanimous vote of creating an indictment to put on trial the Australian government and the officialdom as outlined on our participation form, file number GJI 0802205. Thank you very much. The indictment has been created. History has been made. History is in the making. This is a message to the Australian government. The Australian people, the people of Terra Australis, are awake, know what you're doing, we know what you're doing, and you are now being indicted, and you will hear from us, and you will receive your summons and serve these documents. Thank you everyone for that. Beautiful. I just want to ask, is there anyone against the indictment? Anyone say no? Oh, nobody. 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 Shock horror. Nobody. Anyhow, we thank you very much for that, and I'll hand the mic back over to the wonderful Carl from the Voice of Freedom. Thank you everyone very much. You did great. You did great.
Thank you, everybody.
I got to tell you folks, I've got goosebumps listening to that cheer as it went up after that vote. So thank you very much for your participation in that, and well, we've got a lot more coming, so stay tuned. Now, before we wrap up proceedings today, I'd like to introduce a lady to you that I had the pleasure of meeting a couple of years ago. My knowledge of First Nations people is lacking and still lacking, but the knowledge that I do have is in great part being gleaned from this wonderful lady that I'm about to introduce you to. She is an elder of this country, Ngunnawal land, that we are currently standing on. Some people who claim to be referenced to that Ngunnawal land don't recognise this wonderful woman, and she is a powerhouse in her own movement. Would you put your hands together for Auntie Glenda, please?
Thank you, Carl. Beautiful. You know, I got really emotional this morning because I didn't even know I was going to come and be standing here having a few words. Woohoo! But I want to start off with saying that my name is Glenda Merritt. They call me Auntie Glenda, and I'm a Ngunnawal elder. But I won't be doing no welcomes because it's all our country. We are united under God. This is Mother Earth. Mother Earth takes care of us. Motherland. So I want to say it 3 times. I want you to repeat after me. Save our children! Save our children! Save our children! Our country is a crime scene. I am an advocate and defender for human rights. This week, February the 13th, marks the 17th anniversary of the National Apology for Stolen Generations. I want to talk about personal stories, not government. It's got to be real now. We've got to start talking about the real stories. So the real story, I'm really sort of emotional because I've got lots of family stories to tell. So my stepfather was taken away from a very young child, 4 years old. And you can check this out on YouTube, and his name is Cecil Dixon with a Dicson. #41. He was known by a number, not his name, in this Kinchilla Boys Home. So please watch the video because you listen to him, his story. I can't tell his story. And you'll see my beautiful mum in that video too at the end. God bless her because she's passed away. So my next story is, I have a death certificate here. And the death certificate is the 21st of June 1959. It's got my parents' name on it. But it doesn't have my sister's name on it. And before Mum passed away, I said, "Where's Millie, Mum? Where's she buried?" Mum said, "They didn't give her back in 1959. I said, what the hell are you talking about? She goes, "She was full term. Mum said she heard her cry, but back in those days, they just take the baby away. You know, ward of the state. The birth certificates is a ward of the state. They can do damn well what they want with our children. And they're still doing it today." So I was frantic. I ran up to the hospital. I mean, this is after Mum passed away, bless her, which is in 2017. I went to the hospital. I walked in. I said, "I want to see the records of my sister." They had one bit of paper with my parents' name on it and not even my sister's name. I said, "My parents gave her a name. Her name is Mildred. Millie. Why is her name not on this document?" They could not answer me. I run down to births, deaths and marriages. And I asked them for the death certificate. At the time, they said they couldn't find any information. There was no record. I ran back up to the hospital. I was in tears and I asked them, "What did you do with the babies back in those days?" Because it was only young people working then, they had no idea what I was talking about. But they went and spoke to the most senior nurse, and she said, "Back in those days, they didn't give them back to the parents." What a load of bullshit! They've stolen my sister. Where is she? Could she be still alive? What have they done with her? I want answers from the government. This is just one of many stories. They told me something disgusting. I can't even repeat it standing here today, what they would have done to her. You know, for respect for her, I won't say, but it's going to come to light because everyone's going to find out soon what they've been doing with our children. Everyone, worldwide. Here's another story about my sister, my older sister. This is in 2017, Woden Valley Hospital. My sister was sick. She was in Sydney with me. I was nurturing her and she goes, "I've got an appointment back at Woden Hospital." I said, "Do you really want to go?" Because it's her choice. She goes, "Yeah, I'll go down. It's just a procedure." So I took her back to Woden Hospital. In that week, there was 3 fires. Just Google Woden Hospital fires, 6th of April 2017. This is the scene. There was the last fire and they were evacuating all the patients from Woden Hospital. My sister was in oncology. She had her own private room. Everything was in darkness. And ambulance are coming and they're taking all the patients back to other hospitals. And we were the last to leave. It was in darkness, all in shutdown. I thought, what the hell is going on? I thought, I'm going to go and find out, sis. Anyhow, obviously she was medicated out to it. And I'm walking through this Woden Hospital looking for someone to come and save my sister. There was a doctor walking towards me, goes, "How did you get in here?" I said, "I was here all day with my sister." I said, "No one's coming to save her." He lets me out the front. And as I go out the front of Woden Hospital, there's fire brigades and ambulance everywhere. It was like a war zone. I run around the hospital because they said they were going to take my sister up to emergency to get it, transported to another hospital. I run around the hospital and I sneak back in. When I got to where she was in emergency, I waited and I waited and I waited, and he comes out, "I don't think she's going to make it." I said, "What do you mean? She was only not long talking to me, a few hours before." So I want answers, Woden Hospital! What'd you do to my sister? Did you take her life? 3 fires, was that a ritual? I want answers. I'm still angry. Here's another story about my other sister. This is what you people have got to do, everyone Australia-wide, worldwide. You've got to start telling your stories. What really happened to my family in that hospital? My youngest sister, only just before Christmas, was in the Prince of Wales Hospital in Sydney. She went in because she had breathing problems. She was in the hospital, and obviously the doctors got her family, they hushed them off into another room, and they told her family, your mum's not going to make it. She's really sick, she's not going to make it. And they were all upset, and they run back to the room, and they're surrounding her bed, you know, upset. She goes, what's the matter with yous? And they told her what the doctor said. And that actually scared the hell out of her. Thank God she's pulled those cords out. You know, rings me up. I go up there, and I had all the legal documents to sign her out. And they would not let her, you know, sign herself out. Luckily, I had the documents to prove you can't hold her. She's got a voice. I said, Suzanne, do you want to stay here or go home? She goes, I'm going home. They told me I'm going to die. Now, what's going on there? She's still alive today. You've got to start asking these questions. What's going on? It's just absolutely disgraceful. It's genocide, all right? And it's just like, you know, let's talk about the COVID for Northern Territory. Wow, it's absolutely shocking. You know, they were paying our Aboriginal people $500 each to get the vaccines. You know, I asked a person a few weeks ago, is there any records about what's, you know, where these people, a lot of them are passed away. That's just, you know, from third-hand information. But seriously, they were sending up body bags. And we're trying to find the source who ordered these body bags. We're still trying to find the source who ordered these body bags for our people and community. You know, you've got to ask the question, you know. Even our Aboriginal people, deaths in custody, there's 500 deaths in custody. You know, 500, there's no arrests, no accountability. You've got to keep asking these questions. Why? And they like to keep us at a low energy vibration. They like to keep us in trauma. You know, and this is where the voice is really important. Everyone's got to get up and tell their story. Be brave. You've got to do it because obviously, you know, the only way we're going to beat this satanic system is to beat it with everybody's story. I'm sure, you know, people in the crowd here could have their own personal stories. You got to make sure you put it out to the universe. That's how we're going to beat them, through God, through the universe. You know, our country's a crime scene. You know, even my hometown, Yass, growing up, we've always talked about, you know, children's secret graves. That's another story. It's absolutely shocking. So use your voice, tell your stories, and be brave, and don't give up. Because this is only the beginning. We are in control now. You know, I'm a light worker. I'm a truth warrior. And I won't stop talking anymore. I'm only just going to get louder. Thank you.
Thank you, Auntie Glenda. I just want to thank you for her personal testimonies today. That's some deep stuff, and just 3 stories, but there are so many more that will be told as we move forward under this. We're moving towards the end of the formal proceedings here today, but before we do get to the end, there is another very important section of information that you all need to be aware of. And I'm going to introduce Donna back to the stage along with Franco, a man who will be known to many of you, and they will take you through the People's Court Grand Community Orders. Now, if you don't have a copy of these here, or if you'd like a copy of any of the documents you've seen today, you can go to voffhq.com and download these documents right now. It's important that you do download them and understand what they mean. And, well, the community orders, I'll hand it over to Donna and Franco, and you can find out what this is about.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for everyone who's been here today and spoken. So today we're running through the community orders, which is your voice, which are pertinent issues in our community. Do you want to say hello?
I want to say hello to Mondays and Maggies. Rocco! One more. Come on. That's it, brother. I want to thank everyone that's rocked up. I'll tell you what, this is a privilege for me today. It really is, and it's quite an emotional bearing to think we're in Parliament House. Just take that on board, you know. So Anyway, I'll give it back to Donna and we'll keep it going, eh? It is.
It is ours. Okay, so this is the following community. Thank you. The following community orders are presented today for your consideration, and if you wish for, if it be your will, wish, and instruction to put into effect these community orders. And your option as well is to cross out anything that you don't agree with, send it through to info@corruptionwhistleblower.com or post an original off to CWB PO Box 577 Goulburn 2580. Otherwise, leave them here with us for the people who are here today. You can download these forms from ibroadcast.au, the VOF HQ, and they'll be on corruptionwhistleblower.com as well. So this is the final notice. Community orders presentation and approval by the people and enforcement for the people. So this is the People's Court representing we the people and the protectors of common law and the Commonwealth Constitution of Australia, and with the Corruption Whistleblower newspaper. Now, these are to be enforced upon all individuals and entities implicated herein under the authority of law and constitutional principles, common law and international law. The first one I'll be reading out is crimes against humanity, geoengineering and chemical poisoning. Number 1. Any man or woman who knowingly takes part in or assists in the application of geoengineering and substances commonly known as chemtrails shall be indicted and prosecuted under crimes against humanity and genocide for causing harm to the people and the environment of this great nation. Under the People's Court and international law, the offenders will be personally liable, as there is no such thing as corporate immunity. All are equal before the law, and following orders will not release you from what you have criminally did. Loyalty to the people is a fiduciary duty, and upholding the Constitution is paramount. Please recognise the serious threat posed by knowingly taking part or assisting in the deliberate chemtrailing and geoengineering of this land. Scientific and public evidence confirms that these programs are releasing toxic aerosols into the atmosphere, harming the people's health, agricultural and environment en masse. And just for example is that Frankenskies movie. Would you like to read the next section of that?
Yep.
Yes.
In any man or woman who knowingly takes part in assist to the application of harmful chemicals into the water, such as fluoride. You know, when Mrs. Marsh said it really gets in, she really meant it, didn't she? And other forever chemicals and poisons shall be indicted and prosecuted under the crimes against humanity for causing harm to the people and the environment in the great nation. Under international law and rule of law, you'll be personally liable, as there is no such thing as corporate immunity. All are equal before the law, and following orders will not release you from form what your criminality did. Thus, the people who deliberately partake in the contamination of water supplies, whether through an addition of harmful chemicals such as fluoride or other pollutants into domestic and agricultural water systems, constitutes a direct attack on the people's health and causes harm to the entire ecosystem. The Water Management Chief Executive Officer, man or woman, will knowingly facilitate or approve these actions, shall be indicted and prosecuted for the crimes against humanity.
Yes. That's number 1 completed. You can read number 2 if you want. It's good. Yeah.
Thank you.
It's good.
Secret societies and harmful oaths. Now, I actually questioned Malcolm Roberts and Craig Kelly whether they were part of one. Now, Malcolm Roberts vehemently denied it, and Kelly waited for a few more questions and said, "Judge me for what I have done." So what has he done? Okay. Anyone who knowingly takes part in or helps enforce false oaths, secret society oaths, or any fraudulent oaths that go against the Commonwealth of Australian Constitution Act 1901 and put private interests above the people is acting unlawfully. Groups like Freemasonry, the corporate Australian government, and the other oath-bound organisations that demand secrecy and require members to act against the public's best interest. Constitutional law, natural justice, and engaging in the conspiracy of per verbeth course of justice. Any individual found to be engaging in harmful, subversive, or conspiratorial activities through such societies may face indictments and prosecution for crimes against humanity and other certain sectors breaching fiduciary duties. One of my favourite words lately.
Yes.
Yes.
The F word.
The F word.
Yeah. Yes. And the health sector, this is number 3. Health sector, big pharmaceutical corporations, bioweapon engineering. Any man or woman who knowingly takes part in or assists with the development, authorisation and distribution of mRNA-based bioweapons or experimental medical procedures that have resulted in harm, death or long-term adverse effects will be indicted and may be prosecuted under crimes against humanity for items such as democide, mass harm and medical negligence. Let it be known that forced medical interventions, coercive mandates, and profiteering at the expense of all of the people's health are violations of international human rights and laws. And the health and well-being of the people must never be compromised for profit, political control, or covert agendas. And we have this absolutely brilliant video, the witness statement video, Australia's witness statement it's called. Brilliantly put together video, it goes for 2 hours, 15 minutes. It is a brief of evidence. We would very much appreciate you to watch that. Yeah, we've got some people here who've seen it. Hands up who's seen it. Yeah, it's really powerful, and thank you to the makers of that. Absolutely fantastic work. It's included in the indictment brief of evidence. Thank you for that. Here you go.
Oh, great. Environmental crimes, nuclear waste and disposal. Well, I can think of a few, but they're not in this building, are they? Any man or woman who knowingly takes part in or assists in the disposal of nuclear waste, excluding medical nuclear waste, onto our lands, water and communities, causing a catastrophic risk to the environment and human health, and those who engage in such irresponsible practices shall be indicted and may be prosecuted for environmental crimes and crimes against humanity. The people have the right for clean air, clean water, and an environment free of deliberate contamination and destruction. No private interest or government entity has the authority to compromise our natural resources and profit of control.
Yeah, I just want to comment on that one, because the reason why that one's gone in is because they've jammed through the approval of nuclear waste dumps in both South Australia and Western Australia, right near the people who are living down there. So absolutely disgusting, and we do not approve, the people do not approve of nuclear waste being dumped near our homes and near our towns or anywhere in Australia at all. Number 5, media manipulation and the suppression of truth. Any man or woman who knowingly takes part in or assists in the mainstream media, engaging in deliberate suppression, manipulation, and distortion of truth, and withholding and or restricting critical information from the people, are co-conspirators in crimes against humanity. Any Australian news organisation, such as the Australian Broadcasting Corporation, ABC, and other media corporations who knowingly censor vital information and propagate falsehoods to deceive the people, shall be held accountable for aiding and abetting systematic harm and crimes against humanity. The duty of the press is to inform, not to deceive. And as of today, those who fail in this duty will be subject to investigation, indictment, and possible prosecution. Let it be known, let it be heard, let it be said, and let it be done. Number 6. They're responsible for many deaths in the media.
They are indeed, Donna. Now, obviously you heard the stories of child protection and unlawful removal of children. Thank you very much. Auntie Glenda's story rang very true to this, and for many of us who have dived into all this. But anyway, let's go. Child protection and unlawful removal of children. Any man or woman who knowingly takes part and insists in unlawful removal of children from families without proper suitable or verifiable cause of action and lawful cause or due process. All Child Protection Department agencies have engaged in these acts that constitute kidnapping, hostage-taking and violation of human rights, which equals slavery. Any man or woman or social worker, judge or government official involved in unjustified removal of children without lawful due process shall be indicted and prosecuted for crimes against humanity. Child trafficking and unlawful imprisonment. The most sacred duty of any society is to protect its children. Period. That's it. Yet currently, institutions under the guise of child protection departments and its workplace contractors and employees are knowingly taking part in child trafficking and crimes against humanity in this crime.
Yes, so you'll see before we proceed part 1 and 2 where they come and tried to snatch my daughter, and that's a very good indication of how to prevent that. And then there's more to the story after that. But it's epidemic level. They're lifting 61,000 children a year. That's 240 a day in Australia in the work week. It is beyond shame. It is disgusting. It's for profit, 40,000 a pop when they lift the child out of mostly safe homes. Pastor Paul was over 150 cases, and he said not 1 ounce of neglect did he find in any of those cases. And then he gets dragged through court as well.
Yeah,
of course.
It's funny, wards of the state, just think of that for a moment, where your identity is completely stripped bare. And you're given a number, like the number of 43 or 115. Now, obviously I've been doing a fair bit of investigation into, obviously, the Royal Commission and what have you. And we know all about the misdemeanours that went along and the passing of children. But they were using our kids as lab rats. Let that sink in. Yeah. And all will be revealed. Yeah. Anyway.
And every child that was in their custody got injected, whether you like it or not, with every single injection, every single COVID injection. And I just want to add, those poor parents that had to try and go and see their children in COVID times were forced to be injected, or they did not get to see their children after their children had been kidnapped by this child trafficking mess that they call fraudulently child protection. It's far from child protection. Children have huge increase of percentage of risk of harm when they are with the people who do not love them. They are a bunch of strangers around them, and they are taken from people who do love them a lot of the times for ridiculous things like unknown risk. It's never substantiated. Huge amounts of unsubstantiated children getting taken by their own admission, all in Edition 1. The centre 10 pages of Edition 1 has this all broken down, and it's by their own admission. It's not us making up the numbers. They're putting it up on their web pages. Anyhow, child protection is such a big topic. We would love teams to come together and audit these child protection mobs and get some... Yeah, we need teams. We do. We need teams to come together and go back and audit child protection and who the heck have they put in prison, because, you know, there's some criminals in there, but there's some no criminals in there. There's bigger criminals walking around out here who we just indicted. So, Yep, and then the NGOs.
Yep.
Yep. They took 5, yeah. So sorry. Yeah, took 5 of his children. Yeah, the independent children lawyers he's talking about. They don't have clearance checks to deal with children. Wow. Yes, it's atrocious. The entire child protection system needs to be looked at from the People's Commission. Not a royal commission where they find out all the gaps and plug all the holes up so they never find it again. It has to be from the People's Commission. We really are the ones that need to go back in and look at these disgusting broken systems. And they've been broken for some time. We are all the stolen generation now. It's just crossed over to everyone. And it has made us very much more empathetic to First Nation who were caught up in this. So our heart and love goes out to the poor parents who are suffering under that regime. It's disgusting. Surveillance, data harvesting, this is number 7. Surveillance, data harvesting and espionage. Any man or woman who knowingly takes part in or assists in the mass surveillance, unauthorised data harvesting, and targeting and trafficking of individuals without certified and verifiable cause of action are taking part in espionage and privacy violations. Within the Commonwealth of Australia, any warrant granted for unlawful surveillance shall be considered an act of espionage, and those responsible will be indicted and may be prosecuted according to the rights and privacy accordingly, because rights and privacy are not negotiable. We know they're tracking us without their phones and doing all their tricks. Well, it's going to be coming out sooner or later, and they will be indicted because the light of the truth of God is coming to shine on these governments and fraudulent NGOs and child traffickers and Serco and a lot of yous. You cannot hide from the light, and the fear that they're feeling now is in relation to the amount of guilt they've got.
Malfeasance of office and financial crimes. Everybody, this is little Charlie, and she's going to be the future of our Constitution, right? So, any man or woman who knowingly takes part in or assists in the malfeasance, abuse of power, financial fraud, or obtaining financial gain through deception will be indicted and prosecuted under the international law, common law, under rule of law for fraud causing harm, the misuse of public funds, bribery, and international misinterpretation in office are offences that must be met with full force of lawful justice, and I think we can all agree with that.
Yes, very much. So the call to action today is to be familiar, get familiar with the community orders. Today, the people, reclaim your voice and speak, and the community orders are to be of immediate effect. All corporate persons, men and women, violating these principles and these orders shall be held accountable before the People's Court, international criminal courts, and in God's sight. Be held accountable. Can't hide. Let this be the beginning of a new era, one of truth, justice, and restoration and transparency. We will no longer be deceived. The Australian government and other corporations shall no longer be apathetic or ignorant to the people's rights. We have told them now. We've told them, and they can no longer be ignorant to our rights of our brothers and sisters. Bless you all. So we will not stop until justice is restored and full accountability is achieved. Let justice be done for God's sake and for the sake of us all. Now it's up to you, the people, to use your pen and, if it be your will, autograph and thumbprint the community orders. So that is the end of the community orders. If you'd like to...
Yeah, I've got one thing that I'd like to say. Can the boys that do Government House in Canberra come to the front? All of you, come to the front. I want to acknowledge you guys. Yeah, absolutely. All you guys that go to Government House in Canberra, come to the front. Yeah. Well, anyway, the ones that are on the lawn anyway. And the girls, I do apologise. Can we give these guys a round of applause, please? They deserve it. Yeah. Well done. Thank you. Thank you.
Barbecue on the lawn after this, guys.
Yep.
Beautiful.
Thanks once again. Thank you.
Thank you. Just take a seat and we'll do some closing summaries. I appreciate that. You can stay here for some refreshments or you can go to the barbecue. So this is the People's Grand Jury and operates under the humble blessing of Almighty God, Supreme Authority, the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Australia, and we the people. The basis of this indictment has been founded in constitutional law and historical evidence and international lawful principles. In summary, these indictments and the documents and the preceding forms the foundation. This all forms the foundation of the indictment, what you've all done today. Thank you very much. Section 128, the Constitution, the process of the referendum consent via the electors, and from the evidence presented, it has been breached. You've said that. Royal Stars and Titles Act, 1973, the fraudulent alterations of governance and governance structures without lawful referendum. You've said, yes, that's true. The Australia Act, 1986, the Queen of Australia, a legal severance of the constitutional ties of the United Kingdom without electors, you're the electors, without your consent. Referendum dates and results demonstrating missing referendums. Visual evidence. You've got the video that you can watch. The video is compiled of the Prime Minister swearing unlawful oaths to the fictitious Queen of Australia and not the Commonwealth Constitution. And then we've just gone through everything. So number one, unlawful governance and high treason. The installation of a corporate government outside the lawful constitutional framework. This is what's happened. This is what you've just voted on. A fraudulent Queen of Australia with her oaths in violation of the Constitution Act 1900. And the removal of the lawful crown without referendum, nullifying all government authority thereafter. So how are they putting the people in jail where they really have no authority? The judiciary, it might as well be McDonald's sitting up there. They're just a bunch of corporate. Anyhow, I'm not going to go. I shall continue. Number two, crimes against humanity, the breach of international law, participating in geoengineering, leading to ecological devastation and public health crisis, fluoridation of the water supplies. It means there's mass poisoning, mass medication without public consent. Complicity of government agencies in medical experiments via mRNA bioweapon deployment, and the enforced mandates leading to excess deaths, mass democide. They're going to trial. The systematic abduction and trafficking of children by the child protection agencies operating without lawful jurisdiction and increasing the level of risk of harm dramatically when the children are unlawfully removed from their homes and taken into these institutions. The use of psychological warfare, censorship and media manipulation to silence the truth and overall dissent. Media manipulation, economic fraud and high-level corruption. The installation of the 1966 financial agreement, unlawfully centralising economic control. That's what, we crossed over from imperial to metric. They changed us out of the pound, which was backed by in-ground assets, to a fiat currency without referendum consent. The illegitimate application of Canon Law 2057 to enforce debt slavery over free people. Failure of public officers to disclose dual citizenship, violating sovereign national integrity. The will of the people, indictments and the summons. Now, the people, as the jurors, the grand jury, have determined that the evidence presented established probable cause when the people shall now exercise their rightful power to indict the named individuals on the participation form and issue summons for trial in the next few months. Every juror, they will be officially served these papers. Every juror will have the opportunity to formally sign the People's Indictment affirming their decision. That's your participation form. The indicted individuals shall be served their lawful summons and be required to stand trial. Thank you very much. Today marks the beginning of a new era where justice is not dictated by corrupt institutions but is restored through the power of the people. Hear, hear. Hear, hear. Those who have betrayed the trust of the people, those who have acted in contempt of our Constitution and our natural rights and God-given rights will face the consequence of their action. The People's Court does not act out of vengeance, but out of necessity to restore justice, integrity and lawful governance to this nation. Let it be known that the grand jury of living men and women does hereby find probable cause to indict those named in the grand jury and the participating form, and that justice may be served. May the People's Court bring light to the darkness, and may we all be blessed as we go along our way. And I thank you deeply with all my heart for you all attending and taking part in this fantastic event. And I thank the people that helped put it on and key contributors to it. We are not controlled by anyone. We are the ones who put on the event. We're the top of the line. There's no one above us except God himself. So this is how the people come together. Thank you very much. And may you travel safe, stay for some refreshments, or go and enjoy the barbecue. The weather has done well for us, and I thank you all very much. And thank you for our wonderful AV team, and loving to you all online. Mwah, mwah. Thank you very much. Yeah, you got a question? Yeah. Oh yeah, they'll have the barbecue after the refreshments here. Thank you, everyone. I won't be doing questions at the moment. If you're here, put the location is here. Just put your suburb and area for the location. You don't have to write your home address or anything. Any other questions about the form, feel free to email me on info@corruptionwhistleblower.com. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. That wraps up the formal proceedings for the day. We will have an afternoon tea. It'll be laid out in the next half an hour, 45 minutes or so. There is a barbecue out the back, which will happen after that with the Canberra Stand guys, the Canberra crew. And when I say out the back, I mean over that side of the Parliament House on the parliamentary lawns. No, we don't have a permit. Just saying. Folks, I want to thank you for your participation. Thank you for caring enough to travel great distances or short. And I just want to let the members of the current illegal government know that we are here. We, the people, have spoken. And I'm going to take a word from Auntie Glenda. Hear us! Shame! 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 We are coming! We, the people, are coming! Thank you for your attendance, people.